Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is about some minute designing details that I included in my book and I wanted to share with you guys because a lot of you asked me in the comments as well. So this video is going to talk about some details that personally matter to me to a very great extent. Whether you have a matte cover, polished cover, thick paper, thin paper, what GSM of paper you have, font size, what fonts you're using, black and white or colored illustration, what colors you should use. I'll be talking about it all in this video, so stay tuned and I hope you like this video. So let's start with the very basics, that is the font. And I have a little story to share when I'm talking about the fonts of my book and how I came to decide it. Basically, we were working on a very tight deadline when I was writing my book. Writing, not, I would say, editing my book to send it to the publishers, like you send your final draft to the publisher. So I was in that process. And basically, I had sent my book to the governor of Madhya Pradesh to invite him for my book launch, and we were having a literary session to encourage people to study literature and also pursue literature in their future and give importance to literature in their daily lives, especially children of my age. So he agreed to attend that, and we all know that when a governor is attending an event, he tells you the dates on which he's free, and then you have to work accordingly. So he told us the details for the event, what date and where should we do it, and we were on a very tight deadline. So what happened, it was Friday, it was 6 o'clock, and basically my publisher emailed me and she was like, it'd be great if you could just send me the fonts today, your selection of fonts, because it's going to be Sunday soon, the publishing unit will be closed, and if we could send your books today, printing wouldn't take that much time, otherwise we'll spend 2 extra days on printing, and that'll, we won't be able to meet deadlines that way. And I went in full panic mode. So if you're a person like me, to me these little details, even if it's just the font, you might think it's fonty to hai, but it's really important to me. So I went to my mom and I took these 2 stanzas of my poems and I copied them in 10 word documents in different fonts, Times New Roman, Bell MT, any font. I literally, and my mom and I, we actually asked a lot of different people if they are aware of any fonts that are actually suited for a book. So I got fonts from my calligrapher, my illustrator. Mom got them, she's a professor, she got it from her students which are in the editorial board. We got some from our publishers. So ultimately we had a lot of, around 20 fonts in options, and we quickly got so many pages printed out. I'll be showing a picture, it's right here. And we sat down for 2 hours and we were just thinking, okay, which one? And it seems easy, but it was kind of hard. Reason being that sometimes you feel like, oh, these look so similar, these are literally the same fonts, but they're not. When you look minutely, there is actually a very significant difference between them. So we were doing that. We came down to Times New Roman and Bell MT. And I feel like Times New Roman is a very underrated font. We use it so often, but we don't give it that much credit. Very underappreciated. But so we came down. Final font we selected was Bell MT. Font size was 12. Let's come out to the thickness of the paper. Basically, I think thickness of the paper really impacts the feel of your book. Sometimes if a paper is a very less GSM, basically thickness of paper, whenever you go into the market to buy the papers, they'll ask you in GSM. So that actually represents the thickness. And I would recommend get a thickness above 50 GSM because that really maintains the quality of whatever you're going to be printing on the paper. When you flip your pages, it doesn't feel that good if your pages are of below 50 GSM. So this actually also depends on a publisher. They might have a certain maximum limit to which they can print. For example, my publishers had 60 GSM, but I specially requested them that can you please do 85 GSM, because it really matters to me the way my book feels, and page quality is a very important aspect as well. And thankfully they did agree. And for the cover, we went from 300 GSM and we went for a matte finish. So I'll just show you. This is my book and as you can see, there is not a very glossy finish to it. There are two finishes, matte finish or glossy finish. I basically asked a lot of people myself, and they said with the way what colors I wanted on the cover, and I wanted calligraphy on the cover, for that I should definitely choose matte finish. But I would say that it actually really depends on your personal preference. There's no right or wrong in this. It just depends on the author's personal preference. Now let's come to basically the illustrations. So you can, there are two ways to go about the illustration. You either hire an illustrator and you send them your poems or whatever content you have for your book, and you tell them, okay, you use your imagination, read my poem, use your complete imagination and make the illustrations. That would usually cost you a little bit more because that involves the complete imagination plus the sketching and drawing from the illustrator. I went with the second way, which was I actually wanted to personalize every aspect of my book, and I felt deeply that there is no one that can understand my poem better than me. So I basically would sit down, I would read each and every poem again, think what space of mind I was when I was writing them, because some of them are written like 2 years ago, so I would try really hard to think about that. And then I would just roughly try to sketch whatever picture came to my mind. Now I like to describe in my first stanza a little bit environment, a little bit of the characters I'll be uh, describing in the poem. So maybe you could either go with, if you have a little scenery, you could either directly show the scenery in the illustration, or you could actually make it a little bit more symbolic. I wanted to go with the symbolic way because I feel like people are eventually going to read the poem and imagine it themselves. I wanted them to have their own imagination in this case. Whatever scenery I have described, I wanted them to have their own imagination for that. I didn't want to limit my readers' imagination when they're reading my poem. So I made it rather symbolic, that it gave out the same message of the poem, but it was a little bit more symbolic. So that was how we went. I would sketch it. I would tell my illustrator, okay, I want these colors, or maybe some illustrations look really good when they're black and white, so I would tell him about that, and that is how we went. And he did digitalize it, right? So that is how we went. What happened was, my illustrator's father was not very well and he was admitted in the hospital, and he told me that it's better we conclude our agreement over here, because I don't think I am able to give the work you expect me to be giving to you, so you should look forward to other illustrators. And that time, this was a very big shock to me, because we were working on deadlines and we were going on a very good pace, but now I had to do it all by myself. So I remember just sitting. I wouldn't get up until like 5 hours or something. I would just also draw my own, just because just in case I'm not able to find any other illustration online, I would put my own in it. For every poem I had like 8 9 illustrations shortlisted, but I feel like digitalizing an illustration really makes an impact, and I wanted it to be that way. And I pushed myself way too far, exhausted myself. I barely got any sleep, and I had like 25 poems to cover, and I was very tensed and I was frustrated because I also had to send my illustrations to the publishers. And I was like, maybe those days I could have studied a little more. Maybe I didn't have to exhaust myself that much. But I feel like they definitely taught me a lot in terms of the way I saw how much hard work I could do. I feel like I really pushed my limits at that time, and I'm really grateful for those days. And let's come to calligraphy. Basically, for calligraphy, we chose copperplate calligraphy. Whenever I say calligraphy, I think we all have this certain style of calligraphy in our mind, and a certain style that I chose to be suited for my poems was copperplate calligraphy. And I also told my calligrapher, I didn't want a lot of strokes and how much you could play with the calligraphy, because otherwise the entire purpose of having a title is just defeated. Because when you're putting out content that is meant to be read, I feel like you need to make sure that's clearly written. So I think playing a lot with sometimes you can write a T like this and sometimes you can go like this. So I just didn't want a lot of playing around with the titles. Make it dramatic, but not that much that you cannot read it properly, and the readers have to take a lot of time to just read the title. So that is something I told my calligrapher, and you can also share your content if you want, otherwise you cannot. But I did. And For this, you can refer to my tips in my previous video. But the reason I shared my content was that, if my calligrapher is thinking to place her title centrally aligned on the page, then she should be sure that the other lines that are going to go below it, that will be my poem, also aligns well with the title, because some lines are lengthier than the others, some are shorter. So I just wanted to make sure that she was aware of that and then place the title according to that. So that was calligraphy, and now let's come to editing of the book. Basically, this is, I think, the one of the most hardest things an author has to do. Even though I feel like as an author you expected, okay, editing must be easy for her, she's already good at English, editing should be good for her, it should be an easy job, easily done. But it's not, because you don't have to edit once, you have to edit literally, not exaggerating, but 15 times, I swear. And what exhausted me the most was I had to go through 400 pages again and again and again and again, and I can go on. Reason being that I would read my poem, or like all my poems, once, and then I would spot the mistakes, I'd highlight them, I'd go through it again, I'll find more mistakes, I'll go through it again, and this time I'd be like, I'm reading this very carefully, no mistakes now, and I'd still find a mistake. When you do it continuously, you do an activity repeatedly, just in the same time frame, I think your mind is really not in that headspace to even think clearly and spot mistakes, which you can spot if you were to read them on a very chill day, and you're very chill and you come and read it, okay, wow, I found one more mistake. So, and after I was completely sure that all my editing was done, I sent it to my editor, which was a part of my publisher's team. And basically, those editors, they presented me their corrections in a comparative mode, because sometimes your editor, in they would want to make your text grammatically correct, but in that process sometimes they remove or edit or change some words in your content, which actually hold a lot of significance to the message of your content. So always maybe ask your editor to, maybe you can just highlight the words you're editing, or another short message that I want to share with you guys is that I feel like the entire process of writing a book is very beautiful. It's one of the most, I think, productive and memorable experiences I would ever have in my life. But at the same time, it is tiring, it is frustrating, it requires a lot of hard work, it requires you to be a little exhausted on some days, and sometimes you're excited, sometimes you're happy with it, sometimes you're frustrated, you're tired, sometimes you're even worrying about how your book will do. So it's just a plethora of emotions that an author goes through during those days. And I think since I've written my own book, whenever I'm reading any other author's book, whether it's poetry or whether it is just story, whatever it is, I feel like I've started to appreciate the little details in the book a lot more than I did before, because now I know how much effort that takes. Those details, they look so easy to put in there, like, but it requires so much hard work and so much thought process and so much creativity to even put it there. So I feel like I've started to appreciate that. And even with YouTube, basically I always knew that YouTube is such a hard job. It requires a lot of dedication, a lot of creativity, patience. But I think since the time I started making my own YouTube video, it was actually the time when I realized, when it actually personally affected me, and I started to think in a much better way, and I started to appreciate the other YouTubers in a much better way, that okay, it does require a lot of hard work, it's very challenging and it's not easy. So I would request, I feel like gratitude is the best attitude, and you should always appreciate others and their hard work more. Sometimes what you think is done casually takes a lot of thought process, takes a lot of hard work, frustration, and days of no sleep. So that was it for today. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more videos, and comment down below your views on the video. And if there's anything you would want me to cover in the future, then please let me know. I would love to cover it up. And thank you so much. Have a good day. Missing someone.